everyone, so we're going to look at fragments and run-ons this week. That's our grammar topic, and this will be a little easier, I think, than phrases and clauses. So let's get into it. Fragments. A fragment is a group of words that does not express a complete thought. So anything that it can have a subject and predicate, okay, like for example, a subordinate clause could be a fragment, or it could be missing a part of the sentence that it needs, like a verb or a subject, but any of those would still count as a fragment. So we'll look at some different types. First of all, we can have fragments with no verb. High in the sky, a silver plane swooping toward the horizon. Now, you might be thinking, well, swooping's a verb, so why are you saying there's no verb? Well, first of all, this isn't a complete thought. High in the sky, a silver plane swooping toward the horizon. What? It's not doing anything. And swooping toward the horizon, if you remember from last week, phrases that start with a participle are participial phrases. Remember those ones that often start with verbs ending in ing or ed? So here, this is actually a participial phrase, not a verb. So if we took this away, we would have high in the sky a silver plane, and then there's no verb. Here, writing novels for 10 years, same thing, participial phrase, right? We don't really have a subject who is writing novels for 10 years, or also writing novels for 10 years is a long time. We need something else to make this into a sentence. And this last one, a blue haze settling over the rooftops. Again, we have a subject, but we have no verb here. A blue haze settling over the rooftops obscured our vision. Something needs to be added there so that we have a full sentence. So you'll run into some of those. You also might run into phrase fragments like this. The blustery wind made an eerie sound, and then like a screech owl's cry. Obviously, that is not a full sentence, like a screech owl's cry. It needs to be added on to this sentence. And here, immediate aid was given to the starving town, not only to feed the hungry, but also to help the sick. This just isn't a sentence. Not only to feed the hungry, but also to help the sick. What? We need more to make this a complete thought. We could combine these sentences, these phrases and clauses, and make them into sentences. That would be fine. But we can't have them stand alone as they are. And notice this one is relatively long. So just because something is longer does not make it a sentence. We want to make sure that we're not just looking at length, we're looking at the content of the phrase or clause. And then we also have subordinate clause fragments, which these should be familiar to you from the clause activity last week. Everyone liked the poem Childhood, which was written by Margaret Walker. This is an adjective clause. It can't stand alone as its own sentence. If we change which to something that's a regular pronoun rather than a relative, like it was written by Margaret Walker, then that would work. Okay, but because we have which here, it just doesn't work. It's a subordinate clause. Same here. American students still enjoy Lady Gregory's plays. That's fine, although they were written in Ireland in the early 1900s. It does have a subject and a verb, but it doesn't work as a sentence because it's not a complete thought. When we add a subordinating conjunction like that, we make an adverb clause, and that just can't stand alone as a sentence. So in both of these cases, if we combined these two clauses, we would have a perfectly good sentence, but we can't just leave them the way they are. Run-ons are the other thing that'll be looked at this week, and these aren't too difficult either. Run-on sentences contain two or more independent clauses that are joined inappropriately. So this is the most common type of run-on that I see, and it's usually the one that comes up over 90% of the time. You have an independent clause here, the meeting lasted forever. You have an independent clause here, nothing was accomplished. Subject, meeting, lasted, verb. Nothing, subject, was, verb. That you have two independent clauses, you can't just put a comma between them. That's what we call a comma splice. It's not strong enough to join these. There are multiple ways to turn this into a correct set of sentences or one correct sentence, but this is not one of them. So be careful not to join independent clauses with a comma even if they're related. Here are different ways you can fix it. You can use a period. You can use a semicolon. You can use a comma and a coordinating conjunction. You can make one of the clauses subordinate or use a conjunctive adverb. So let's take a look at what that means. All right, so you might have noticed that things shifted a bit. That's because I just changed the sentence to make it a little simpler so that it would be a better example. So here we have some ways to fix a run-on. The first way, this is a run-on here, so this is not the first way to fix it. This is the run-on. She was a great teacher. Everyone said so. Okay, sentence, sentence, or independent clause, whatever you want to call it. We can't join it with a comma. So what we're going to do instead are some changes. We can stick a period in between them. That is the simplest way to do this. And for long sentences, that might be the most effective way. She was a great teacher, everyone said so. Now, of course, you're probably thinking, well, those sentences aren't very long and they're closely related. That's true. So we have other options here. But if you have too long sentences or too long clauses, with a lot of phrases in them, you can certainly just put a period. You can use a semicolon. She was a great teacher. Everyone said so. It works very well here because these two sentences are both short and closely related. You don't want to use a semicolon to join something that's very long together with something else that's very long. It becomes very clunky and unwieldy. But for something like this, it's perfectly good. I think this is a great way to do it. You can use a comma and a conjunction. She was a great teacher, and everyone said so. There are 7 coordinating conjunctions: and, but, for, or, nor, so, and yet. Any of those combined with a comma can join 2 independent clauses. So here we're just using and really any of those that would fit would work. So we could use so, she was a great teacher, so everyone said so. Now that's kind of clunky. We have so twice, so we probably wouldn't do that. And certain things wouldn't work, like we wouldn't say she was a great teacher, but everyone said so. In other cases, but might work well to contrast the 2 clauses. So you can go with any of these options as far as a coordinating conjunction and a comma. You can do a subordinate conjunction. Okay, so you can turn one of them into one subordinate conjunction like this. Because everyone said so, she was called a great teacher. Now doing that, notice I had to add because, which of course is a subordinating conjunction. And then we also had to add, we didn't have to, but I chose to add this called in here, so this sentence made a little bit more sense. But I can do that. I have the flexibility to do that. And this is a much better construction than this, or even than this. It's a lot more advanced. And then we can also use a conjunctive adverb. Now, it doesn't work perfectly here, but in other cases it will. So she was a great teacher. Accordingly, everyone said so. You probably don't use accordingly much, but in contrasting cases, I bet you might want to use however. However is a great example of this. So that is a conjunctive adverb, can be used to join 2 independent clauses. All those are ways to fix run-ons. So you've now seen run-ons and fragments. We will practice with the exercises that are there, and then you will have a quiz. So you want to pay attention to those. Now, I know I won't see some of you on Monday who normally would come in the first 2 days of the week, but I think these are simple enough that we can certainly pack them into one day rather than 2. So anyway, we will practice these if you're in hybrid in class. If you are doing core, use this video and the practice activities to practice yourself, and get in touch with me if you need anything extra. Thanks a lot, everybody.